Ambassador Mitchell stood in the center of the Galactic Council chambers. The room was huge, with seats rising up on all sides like a stadium. 47 different alien species sat in those seats, looking down at her. Most of them looked bored. Some looked annoyed that she was there at all. This was the third time this month had come before the council. Each time she brought evidence. Each time they did nothing. She pressed a button on her. Holographic images appeared in the air above her head. The images showed the human colony of New Perth, or what was left of it. Buildings were burned. Streets were covered in blood. Bodies lay where they had fallen. 12,000 people lived in this colony, said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. 800 are dead. 2,000 were taken as slaves by the Empire. This is the 17th attack on human settlements in 8 months. Council leader leaned forward in his seat. He was tall and insect-like, with 4 arms and eyes that reflected no light. His species, the hierarchy, had run the council for over 300 years. Ambassador Mitchell said, his voice buzzed through the translation device. We have reviewed your evidence. The Empire is a founding member of this council. They have rights and protections under our laws. They murdered children, said. She pulled up another image. A school burned to the ground. These were children, 6 years old, 8 years old. The soldiers shot them while they ran. Several council members shifted in their seats. A few looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. Waved one of his 4 hands. Perhaps if humanity was stronger, you would not be such easy targets. The galaxy is not a safe place, Ambassador. Species must defend themselves. Laughter rippled through the chamber, not human laughter. Alien sounds that the translators converted into something could understand. They were laughing at her, at humanity, at the deaths of children. Took a deep breath. I am formally requesting sanctions against the Empire. I am requesting that the Council enforce its own laws about slavery and civilian protection. Request, said immediately. The Council has more important matters to address than the complaints of a species that joined us only 3 years ago. If you cannot protect your colonies, perhaps you should abandon them. Stared at him. You expect us to abandon 45,000 people on New Dublin, to just leave them to die. I expect you to make realistic decisions based on your capabilities, said. Now, if there is nothing else, this council has actual business to conduct. Looked around the chamber one more time. Not one species spoke in humanity's defense. Not one voice called for justice. They all just watched her with alien eyes that held no sympathy. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Her security escort followed her. No one in the council said goodbye. 6 hours later, sat in a secure communication room on Earth. The holographic display showed Fleet Commander Daniel Warren in his military headquarters deep underground. With him were 3 other people. Captain Foster, a naval officer with hard eyes. Colonel Hart, who commanded Earth's Marine Forces. And Director Brooks, head of Human Intelligence Operations. They rejected everything, said. They won't help, they actually laughed. Daniel nodded slowly. He was 50 years old with gray hair and a face that had seen too much. Show them the intelligence report, he said to. Pulled up a map of human space. Red dots marked human colonies. A large red arrow pointed at New Dublin. They are planning a major attack. Our sources inside their military confirm it. They are gathering forces for an assault on New Dublin within the next 30 days. How many people? Asked. 45,000 civilians, said, including 15,000 children. The room was silent. Everyone knew what that meant. New Dublin was humanity's largest outer colony. If it fell, if that many people died, other colonies would panic. Some might actually try to evacuate back to Earth. Humanity's expansion into space would stop. We have tried peace, Daniel said. For 3 years we have followed the rules. We brought evidence to the council. We asked for protection. We believed the galaxy would treat us fairly if we acted with honor. We were wrong, said. Daniel looked at each person in the room. I have already spoken with President. She gave me authorization to proceed, but I want to hear it from all of you. Are we sure about this? Once we start, there is no going back. The killed 800 people on New Perth, said. They will kill 45,000 on New Dublin if we do nothing. The Council will not help us, so we help ourselves. The galaxy respects strength, added. Not morality, not justice, only power. They have made the rules very clear. Leaned forward. My crews are ready. The fleet is ready. We have been building and training for 3 years. Let us show them what humans can do. Looked at Daniel. If we do this, we become everything they think we are. Violent, aggressive, dangerous. No, Daniel said quietly. If we do this, we become what they made us. They had 3 years to treat us with respect. They chose contempt instead. They had 3 years to protect human lives. They chose politics instead. This is on them, not us. He stood up. Contact all fleet commanders. Tell them to prepare for immediate deployment. Request another emergency session of the Council. Tell them it is urgent. What am I going to say? Asked. Daniel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Tell them humanity has something important to announce. 3 days later, the Galactic Council chambers filled once again. Sat in his high seat, looking irritated. He had granted S's request for an emergency session, but he clearly did not want to be there. Walked to the center of the chamber, but this time she was not alone. Holographic images appeared next to her. President Victoria stood in the center. Around her were Daniel Warren and 12 other fleet commanders in full military uniforms. The council chamber went quiet. This was not normal. Ambassadors came alone. They did not bring military officers. Council leader said, members of the Galactic Council, for 3 years humanity has sought peace. We came to the stars hopping to find friends. We found something very different. President stepped forward in the hologram. She was 40 years old, calm and professional. We brought you evidence of attacks on our people. You ignored it. We asked for protection under council law. You refused. We requested justice for murdered children. You laughed. The galaxy has taught us an important lesson, Victoria continued. Peace is not a right. It is a privilege given only to the strong. Justice is not universal. It is a luxury enjoyed by powerful species. We understand now. Stood up. What is the meaning of this? You cannot bring military personnel before this council. As of this moment, Victoria said, humanity formally declares war on the Empire. The chamber erupted. Aliens jumped to their feet. Some shouted. Some made sounds that had no translation. Slammed his 4 hands on his desk, demanding silence. You cannot declare war on a council member, shouted. I forbid it. You have no authority over humanity anymore, said. She was smiling now. We are informing you as a courtesy. Any species that helps them will be considered hostile. Any interference with human military operations will be met with immediate force. You have 1 week to evacuate your people from space. After that, we will not be responsible for their safety. Daniel Warren stepped forward in the hologram. For 3 years we have studied galactic warfare. For 3 years we have built ships and trained crews. For 3 years we have prepared for this exact moment. You thought we were weak because we sought peace. You were wrong. You taught us that might makes right, Foster added. Now we will teach you what happens when humans embrace that lesson. The transmission ended. The holograms disappeared. Stood alone in the center of the council chamber. Every alien in the room stared at her in shock. You have just signed your species' death warrant, said. The will destroy you. Perhaps, said. She turned and walked toward the exit. Or perhaps the galaxy should have treated us with respect when we asked nicely. Now you will see what humans do when asking nicely stops working. She left the chamber. Behind her, the council dissolved into chaos. Species were shouting. Some were demanding action against humanity, others were demanding to know how this happened. None of them understood yet, but they would learn soon enough. Earth was done begging. Earth was done being the victim. The war had begun, and the galaxy was about to discover why Earth was classified as and why humans were the most dangerous species to ever reach the stars. In orbit around Earth, 200 warships powered up their weapons. In the outer colonies, militia forces prepared for battle. In deep space, stealth ships began moving toward military bases. The first strikes would come within hours. The galaxy would never be the same again. Supreme Commander studied the reports in his command center on Prime. There was a fortress. Thousands of warships orbited above. Millions of soldiers stood ready below. The Empire had ruled this sector of space for 200 years. No enemy had ever threatened their home. And now these humans thought they could challenge the Empire. So officers stood around the holographic display table. They were reviewing human military capabilities. The data was not impressive. Humanity had maybe 300 warships. Most were converted cargo ships with weapons bolted on. Their largest vessels were barely half the size of battle cruisers. "How many ships do we have in active service?" asked. 4,012, Supreme Commander, his second officer replied. Another 1,000 in reserve that could be activated within weeks. Nodded, the humans had made a fatal mistake. They had confused the Council's political games with actual military weakness. The Council did nothing because they did not need to. They could handle their own problems. "Assemble a fleet," ordered. 500 ships. We will jump to Earth and park in orbit above there. They will see our strength and surrender immediately. This war will be over in less than a week. His officers saluted and left to carry out the orders, returned to studying the human data. Their technology was strange. They used kinetic weapons instead of energy shields. They built their ships heavy and dense instead of large and fast. Everything about human design was backwards compared to proper galactic standards. It would not matter. Numbers always won in the end. The fleet assembled at staging point Zeta. 500 warships gathered in formation, each one bristling with weapons. Fleet commander stood on the bridge of the lead battle cruiser, watching his forces take position. This would be the easiest campaign of his career. "All ships report ready," his communications officer said. "Begin the jump sequence," ordered. "Destination, Earth system. We will arrive in orbit and demand their surrender. If they refuse, we destroy their orbital stations and military bases. No civilian targets. We are not savages." The fleet jumped into hyperspace. The journey would take them through 3 jump points over the course of 6 hours. Settled into his command chair and began composing the surrender demand he would broadcast to Earth. What Fleet Commander did not know was that his fleet was being watched. Human stealth ships had been monitoring staging point Zeta for weeks. The moment the fleet jumped, those stealth ships sent a message back to human command. Captain Foster received the alert on the bridge of the S Defiant. He was 40 years old, career military, and had trained his entire adult life for this moment. His ship was a dreadnought, one of 12 that humanity had built in secret over the past 3 years. Around him, 11 other dreadnought captains received the same alert. "They are moving," said to his crew. "Exactly as predicted, 500 ships heading toward Earth." His tactical officer, Lieutenant Brandon, pulled up the navigation data. "They will pass through junction point 7 in approximately 4 hours. That is where we will intercept them." Looked around his bridge. Every station was manned by professionals who had trained for this exact scenario. "Contact all ships in the task force. Tell them to move into position. Communications blackout from this point forward. We go dark." The human fleet moved through space like ghosts. 12 dreadnoughts, 48 destroyers, and 72 missile frigates. 132 ships total, outnumbered almost 4 to 1. But the humans were not planning a fair fight. Captain commanded the S Retribution. She positioned her ship on the far side of Junction Point 7, waiting in complete silence. Captain Jason Burke and the S Vengeance took position above the junction point. One by one, the human ships surrounded the area where the fleet would emerge from hyperspace. Human stealth technology was not based on galactic designs. Humans had developed it independently, using different principles. Galactic sensors looked for energy signatures and mass readings typical of galactic ships. Human ships ran cold and dense, absorbing sensor waves instead of reflecting them. To sensors, the human fleet was invisible. 4 hours passed. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at Junction Point 7, exactly where human intelligence predicted. 500 warships appeared in formation, their shields raised, their weapons powered but not active. They were in no danger here. This was empty space between star systems. Watch them on his displays. The ships were spread out, maintaining standard formation spacing. They were not expecting a fight. They were not even looking for enemies. All ships said over the encrypted channel, "Weapons free, execute attack plan Alpha." 132 human ships simultaneously. They appeared in a perfect sphere around the formation, already at attack range. Before they could react, the humans opened fire. Human rail guns fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. The projectiles hit shields designed to stop energy weapons. The shields failed immediately. Solid matter moving at relativistic speeds punched through energy barriers like they were not there. Nuclear missiles streaked across the void in massive swarms. Each human ship carried hundreds. The missiles overwhelmed point defense systems that were designed to stop dozens of targets, not thousands. Electromagnetic pulse weapons fired concentrated bursts that fried electronics. Ships went dark, their systems offline, their crews blind and helpless. And then the plasma cannons opened up, human-designed weapons that threw superheated matter in focused streams. They cut through hull armor like a torch through paper. Fleet Commander watched in horror as his fleet died around him. 12 ships exploded in the first minute, 30 more in the second minute. His communication system filled with distress calls and screams. "Return fire," shouted. "All ships return fire." But they had no targets. The human ships moved fast, changing position constantly. When ships did manage to lock weapons, the humans would accelerate away and hit them from a different angle. The humans fought like nothing had ever seen. They ignored all the rules of proper space combat. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, 412 warships were destroyed. Debris filled the space around Junction Point 7. Bodies floated in the void. 88 ships survived, all of them crippled and helpless. Broadcast a message to the survivors. "I am Captain Foster of the Earth Space Forces. Your fleet came to attack we stopped you. Tell your commanders what happened here. Tell them this is just the beginning. Tell them humanity fights like no species you have ever faced." He cut the transmission. "All ships prepare to jump. Navigation, set course for forward base Theta. We have 4 more targets to hit today." The human fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving the wreckage behind as a message. On Prime, Supreme Commander received the first reports with disbelief. 500 ships destroyed. Impossible. There had to be a mistake. But then the sensor logs arrived. Then the survivor testimonies. Then the video footage from the few ships that managed to record anything before their systems failed. Watched the recordings in silence. The humans fought with weapons that had no defense against. They moved with speed and coordination that should not be possible for such a young species. They struck without warning and left no survivors who could fight back. Howe said to his officers, "How did they do this?" His chief science officer pulled up analysis data. "Their technology operates on completely different principles than ours. We designed our defenses based on 200 years of fighting galactic species. The humans do not fight like galactic species. They fight like nothing we have ever encountered. In the Galactic Council chambers, Council leader watched the same recordings. The other Council members sat in stunned silence. No one spoke. No one knew what to say. Ambassador Mitchell appeared on the main display. She did not look happy or triumphant. She just looked tired. Council leader said, "Humanity has engaged forces. The battle was decisive. The fleet sent to attack Earth has been destroyed. Human casualties were minimal." "You cannot do this," said. His voice was shaking. "You are violating Council law. You are committing acts of war against a member species." "The committed acts of war against humanity for 8 months," replied. 17 colonies attacked, thousands dead, 2,000 taken as slaves. We asked for help. You refused, so we helped ourselves. This is the consequence of your decision." She paused. "I suggest the Council begin evacuating any personnel remaining in space. Human military operations will continue. We will not be responsible for anyone caught in the combat zone." The transmission ended. Looked around the chamber. Several species were already standing up, their representatives shouting orders to their staff. They were pulling their people out of territory as fast as possible. Director Brooks sat in his intelligence center on Earth, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The data was flowing and fast. 6 species had already requested diplomatic meetings with Earth. Trade agreements were being offered. Mutual defense proposals were arriving hourly. The galaxy was responding to strength, just as he predicted. "What are they doing?" his deputy asked. Pulled up the latest intelligence. "They are mobilizing everything they have, every ship, every soldier, every base. They understand now that this is an actual war. They are going to throw everything at us." "Can we win?" Considered the question. "We just destroyed 500 of their ships and lost none of our own. We have better weapons, better tactics, and better intelligence. Yes, we can win. The question is how much it will cost." Captain Foster and his fleet hit forward base Theta 6 hours after the Junction Point 7 battle. The base was heavily defended, but the humans struck from multiple directions at once. Marine boarding parties, led by Colonel Hart, actually infiltrated the station before the main attack. When the human fleet arrived, the base's weapons were already offline, sabotaged from the inside. The base fell in 3 hours. The pattern continued across space. Human forces appeared without warning. They struck with overwhelming power. They vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Every engagement was planned in advance. Every attack hit exactly where they were weakest. The military had spent 2 centuries fighting battles the same way. Large fleets meeting in open space. Days of maneuvering for position. Careful exchanges of fire at medium range. Minimal casualties on both sides. Warfare as a controlled, civilized affair. The humans threw all of that out. They ambushed. They hit and ran. They struck military targets and vanished before defense forces could respond. They fought to win, not to maintain some idea of honorable combat. After 3 weeks, they had lost over 800 ships. Human losses, 23 vessels damaged, only 5 destroyed. The casualty ratio was so one-sided that some galactic military analysts thought the reports had to be wrong. They were not wrong. They were just seeing what happened when a species from a species that had spent its entire history fighting itself, turned that expertise against aliens who had forgotten what real war looked like. Supreme Commander sat in his command center, staring at casualty reports. The war was 3 weeks old and the Empire was bleeding. He made a decision. If humanity would not fight fair, neither would the. He ordered his forces to gather all human prisoners, 800 people from 17 different colony raids. They would be brought to Prime and held in the main plaza. Then he would give humanity an ultimatum: stop fighting or watch their people die. Broadcast his message across all channels. He showed the prisoners kneeling in the plaza, soldiers standing over them with weapons ready. Humanity, he said, you have 72 hours to cease all military operations. If you do not, we will execute 100 prisoners for every base you destroy. The choice is yours. The message reached Earth within minutes. President Victoria convened an emergency meeting. Fleet Commander Daniel Warren joined via hologram. So did Mitchell from the Council Station. They are using our people as shields, Victoria said. They think this will make us stop. Daniel shook his head. If we stop, New Dublin still gets attacked. The other colonies are still targets, and the learn that hostages work. We will never be free of that threat. So what do we do? Victoria asked, though she already knew the answer. We go get our people, Daniel said. All of them. And we show the what happens when they try to threaten humans. He pulled up a battle plan. Operation Broken Arrow. We hit Prime directly. We extract every prisoner. And we do it in a way that makes sure no one ever tries this again. The room was silent. Everyone knew what he was proposing. An assault on the most defended planet in the Empire. It was insane. It was also absolutely necessary. Because if humanity backed down now, they would be backing down forever. The human fleet assembled in deep space, 3 jumps away from Prime. 120 warships formed up in attack formation. 200 smaller craft waited behind them, transports, medical ships, and supply vessels. This was the largest military operation humanity had ever attempted. Captain Foster stood on the bridge of the S Defiant, reviewing the mission plan for the 10th time. The plan was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution. Jump directly into orbit around Prime. Fight through the orbital defenses. Drop Marine teams to extract the prisoners. Hold position long enough for the extraction to complete. Then get everyone out alive. How many ships are defending the planet? Lieutenant Brandon asked from the tactical station. Latest intelligence says 1,043 warships, replied, plus 200 orbital weapons platforms. Each platform has enough firepower to destroy a city. Brandon whistled. We are outnumbered 10-1. 9-1, corrected. We destroyed 100 of their ships last week. That makes me feel so much better. Smiled, it was not a happy smile. Fleet Commander Warren knows this is suicide, but we are doing it anyway, because those are our people down there. We do not leave anyone behind. Commander contacted from the S Retribution. All ships report ready. Marine teams are loaded and equipped. Medical teams standing by. We are as ready as we will ever be. Took a deep breath. Signal all ships, begin jump sequence. Target coordinates, Prime orbital space. Execute on my mark. The human fleet charged their jump drives. Space around them began to distort. This jump would take them directly into the heart of enemy territory, into the most heavily defended location in space. Every calculation had to be perfect. One mistake and ships would come out of hyperspace inside a planet or a moon or each other. Mark said. The universe twisted, stars streaked, reality bent, and then the human fleet appeared in orbit around Prime. Defenders panicked. Nothing should be able to jump that close to a planet. The calculations were too complex, too dangerous. But the humans had done it anyway, and now 120 human warships sat in the middle of the defensive formation. Alarms screamed across Prime. Defense forces scrambled to respond. Supreme Commander watched from his command center as his orbital sensors lit up with contact markers. The humans were already here. They had jumped past every outer defense and come straight to the All ships engage, ordered, kill them all. The battle began instantly. Warships opened fire from every direction. Orbital platforms unleashed their weapons. The space around Prime turned into a hell of explosions and energy beams. But the human ships were not trying to win a space battle. They were trying to create chaos. The human fleet scattered in all directions, forcing them to split their attention. Human ships deliberately drew fire, pulling forces away from the planet. It looked like random panic. It was actually carefully planned coordination. 12 stealth transports dropped toward the planet's surface. They were small, fast, and coated in materials that made them nearly invisible to sensors. Defenders were so focused on the massive space battle that they never saw the transports enter the atmosphere. Colonel Hart sat in the lead transport with her team of 50 Marines. Each soldier wore combat armor built for high gravity and extreme conditions. Their weapons were loaded. Their mission was clear: get to the plaza, extract the prisoners, do not stop for anything. The transports hit the atmosphere hard, using the space battle's chaos to mask their entry. They screamed down toward the surface at speeds that would kill a normal human. But these were not normal humans. These were Marines from Earth, trained in conditions that would break most alien species. The transports came in low over the city, barely 100 meters above the buildings. Civilians looked up in shock as 12 human craft roared overhead. Air defense systems tried to lock on, but the transports were too fast, too low, moving too erratically. Saw the plaza ahead. 800 human prisoners were kneeling in the center, surrounded by soldiers. More were positioned on the buildings around the plaza, weapons ready. This was a trap designed to kill anyone who tried a rescue. The humans did not care. The transports opened up with door guns before they even landed. Heavy machine guns tore through positions on the rooftops. The soldiers guarding the prisoners barely had time to raise their weapons before missiles from the transports hit them. Transport touched down hard. The rear door dropped and she was running before it fully opened. Her team spread out in perfect formation, each Marine covering a sector. Soldiers were scrambling for cover, trying to return fire. Human combat armor made the difference. Built to handle Earth's gravity, the suits made soldiers faster and stronger than warriors. Bullets that would drop a human bounced off the armor plating, ran through enemy fire like it was a light rain. She reached the first group of prisoners and started cutting their restraints with a plasma cutter. "I am Colonel Hart, Earth Defense Forces. We are getting you out of here. Stay low and move to the transports." The prisoners stared at her in shock. They had thought they were dead. Now humans in armor were cutting them free and shooting anyone who got close. More Marines spread through the plaza, covering the extraction. Lieutenant Brandon led a squad that pushed into the underground holding facility. Intelligence said there were more prisoners below. They found 3,000 people locked in cells beneath the plaza. "We need more transports," Brandon called over the radio. "We have 3,000 down here." "Already on the way," replied. She was helping prisoners move toward the transports while firing at reinforcements. "Hold that position. Help is coming." In orbit, Captain Foster watched his fleet take terrible losses. 20 human ships had been destroyed. Dozens more were damaged, but they were holding. The forces were scattered, unable to coordinate an effective response to the human tactics. Ship shook as another hit got through the shields. "Damage report." "Hull breach on Deck 7. Casualties reported. Weapons systems at 60%, his engineer replied. "Can we still fight?" "Yes, sir." "Then keep fighting." More transport ships were dropping toward the planet. Ground forces were finally organizing a proper response. Anti-aircraft batteries opened up. 3 transports were hit and crashed before reaching the plaza, but 12 more made it through, landing in the plaza to load the additional prisoners. Coordinated the evacuation with brutal efficiency. Wounded prisoners went first, then children, then everyone else as fast as they could move. Marines formed defensive perimeters, holding back waves of soldiers. The fighting was close and personal. Marines fired from behind cover, charged with their own soldiers. The plaza became a killing ground where neither side gave any room, lost count of how many she shot. She just kept moving, kept fighting, kept getting people to the transports. Supreme Commander watched the battle from his command center. The humans were actually succeeding. They were extracting prisoners from the Empire. It was impossible, but it was happening. Orbital Platforms 7 through 12 target the plaza, ordered. Destroy it. His second officer turned to him in shock. Sir, the prisoners are still there. Our own soldiers are in that area. I know, said coldly. Fire anyway. We cannot let the humans succeed. But before the order could be executed, the officers at the weapons stations refused. They were warriors, trained to be ruthless in battle, but there were lines even they would not cross. Killing prisoners to deny the enemy a victory was one of those lines. Stared at his own people in fury. They had him. In the middle of battle, his crew had refused an order. The chain of command was breaking. On the ground, the last prisoner loaded onto a transport. Did a quick count. 3,827 prisoners recovered. She had lost 273 Marines. Not good numbers, but they had completed the mission. All teams withdraw to transports. We are leaving. The Marines pulled back in organized teams, covering each other as they retreated. The transports lifted off under heavy fire. Some took hits. Some lost engines, but they all got airborne and started climbing toward orbit. In space received the signal. All transports are clear of the surface. Ground teams extracted. Begin withdrawal. All ships fall back to Rally Point Alpha, ordered. Fighting retreat. Cover the transports. The human fleet started pulling back, still firing. Forces pressed them hard, sensing the chance to destroy the attackers. But the humans had positioned their retreat carefully. They pulled back through a corridor that forced ships into a narrow approach. The humans could concentrate their fire while they could only come at them a few ships at a time. The retreat took 30 minutes. It felt like hours. More human ships were destroyed. The S Defiant lost its main engines and had to be towed by the S Retribution. But the transports made it out. Every single one. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Prime behind. In the command center, Supreme Commander watched them go. His had been assaulted. Prisoners had been extracted from under his nose, and he had been unable to stop it. Status report, said quietly. 312 ships destroyed or damaged, his tactical officer reported. 14 orbital platforms destroyed. Ground casualties estimated at 20,000. The prisoners are gone. Sat down slowly. The Empire had just been humiliated in front of the entire galaxy. The humans had attacked there and succeeded. Every species in known space would see this. They would all know that the mighty Empire could not even protect their own planet. What are our total losses since the war began? Asked. 1,142 warships. Over 200,000 casualties, 37 military installations destroyed or captured. The war was 5 weeks old. In 5 weeks, humanity had crippled the military power of an empire that had ruled for 2 centuries. Looked at the tactical display showing his remaining forces. He had maybe 2,000 ships left. The humans had lost less than 100. This could not continue. The empire would not survive. Back on Earth, the transports landed at military bases around the planet. Medical teams rushed to help the freed prisoners. Families were reunited. Children found their parents. The rescued people were in bad shape, malnourished and traumatized, but they were alive and they were home. President Victoria visited the medical centers personally. She spoke with the prisoners, listened to their stories, thanked them for their courage. Then she held a press conference. Today, humanity showed the galaxy who we are, Victoria said. We went to the of our enemy. We faced impossible odds. We lost good people doing it, but we brought our citizens home, every single one. She paused. They tried to use hostages to make us weak. They learned that threatening humans only makes us more determined. We will never abandon our people. We will never negotiate with those who harm children. We will never stop fighting until our people are safe. The broadcast went out across human space and to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Mitchell made sure every species saw it. She wanted them all to understand. Humanity fought by its own rules now, and those rules included going to hell itself to bring people home. In the Galactic Council chambers, member species watched the recordings in silence. Humans had assaulted Prime. They had extracted prisoners from the most heavily defended planet in the region. They had fought their way through 1,000 ships and lived to tell about it. Council leader finally understood. These humans were not going to lose this war. They were going to win. And when they won, the galaxy would have to deal with a species that was stronger, angrier, and far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The war had entered a new phase. The Empire was broken but not yet defeated. The final battle was still to come, and everyone in the galaxy knew it would determine not just who won the war but what the future of galactic civilization would look like. Supreme Commander had one chance left. After the disaster at Prime, the High Command had stripped him of direct authority, but they still needed him. He was their best military mind, and they were desperate. The new plan was simple: gather every available ship, strip defenses from every system, assemble the largest fleet that had ever fielded, then strike at the heart of human military power before they could recover from their own losses. The target was New Columbia. Intelligence reported it was humanity's largest shipyard. If they destroyed it, human ship production would stop. The war could still be won. Stood in the command center of his new flagship, watching the fleet assemble at Harkin III, 2,000 warships. It was not the 4,000 the Empire had at the war's start, but it was enough. The humans had maybe 400 ships total, and many were damaged from the Prime assault. "This will work," told his officers. "We have numbers, we have firepower. The humans are scattered and weak. We hit them now before they can rebuild." His intelligence officer stepped forward. "Sir, we have confirmed the location of the main human fleet. They are conducting repairs at New Columbia. Most of their capital ships are in dock. This is our opportunity." Smiled. The universe had given him a chance to save the Empire. He would not waste it. What did not know was that his intelligence officer was wrong. Not because the officer had made a mistake, but because Director Brooks had spent 3 weeks feeding false information to every spy in human space. The reports about New Columbia were accurate enough to be believable. The reports about the human fleet being damaged and scattered were completely false. Fleet Commander Daniel Warren stood in his command center deep beneath Earth's surface. Around him, tactical displays showed the real position of human forces. Every major warship, every carrier, every dreadnought. They were not scattered. They were not damaged. They were assembled, repaired, and waiting at New Columbia. "They have taken the bait," Director Brooks said. He was standing next to Daniel, watching the same displays. "Is moving his entire fleet toward New Columbia. He thinks we are vulnerable." "How long until they arrive?" Daniel asked. 8 hours. They will jump in at the edge of the system and advance toward the shipyards. Standard doctrine. Daniel nodded. "Captain Foster, are your forces in position?" Foster appeared on the holographic display. He was on the bridge of the S Defiant, which had been fully repaired since Prime. "All ships ready, sir. We are hidden in the asteroid belt surrounding New Columbia. They will not see us until we want them to." "Colonel Hart, status on the orbital defenses." Hart appeared on another display. She was in command of the weapons platforms hidden throughout the belt. "Every platform is armed and ready. We have turned this entire system into a kill zone." Daniel looked at the tactical map. 300 human warships hidden in the asteroids, 500 weapon platforms concealed in hollowed-out rocks, thousands of automated mines floating in carefully calculated patterns. They were about to jump into the biggest trap humanity had ever set. "This is it," Daniel said. "If we win this battle, the war is over. If we lose, Earth is next. Make every shot count." 8 hours later, the fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the New Columbia system. Supreme Commander studied the sensor readings from his flagship. The shipyards were there, just as intelligence reported. He could see human ships in dock, perfect targets. All ships advance in formation Delta, ordered. Weapons charged. When we reach attack range, we destroy the shipyards and anything near them. The fleet moved forward. 2,000 ships in a massive formation that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. They advanced slowly, cautiously, watching for any human response. The asteroid belt was ahead. Sensors showed it was just a normal belt, full of rocks and ice. Nothing unusual. His fleet would pass through it on the way to the shipyards. As the leading edge of the fleet entered the belt, Fleet Commander Daniel Warren gave the order. All units, execute attack plan. The asteroid belt came alive. Weapons platforms hidden inside hollowed rocks opened fire. Missiles launched from concealed tubes. Rail gun batteries that had been silent for weeks suddenly blazed with power. The fleet found itself under attack from every direction at once. Then the human warships. 300 vessels appeared in the middle of the formation. They had been sitting silent among the asteroids, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment was now. Captain Foster watched the tactical display light up with targets. All weapons, fire at will. Do not stop shooting until everything in range is dead or running. The S-Defiant opened fire with every weapon it had. Rail guns sent projectiles tearing through ships. Missile pods emptied their entire loads. Plasma cannons burned through armor and hull. Around the Defiant, 300 other human ships did the same. The formation tried to organize a response, but they were scattered among the asteroids with enemies on all sides. Their usual tactics of forming defensive lines and exchanging fire at range were impossible. The humans were everywhere, forcing close-range battles where human weapons dominated. Commander drove the S-Retribution straight through the center of the line. Her ship took hits but kept moving, firing in every direction. Behind her, a dozen destroyers followed, spreading chaos and destruction. Captain Jason Burke and the S-Vengeance led an attack wing that targeted the command ships. They identified the flagships by their communications traffic and went after them specifically. Without coordinated command, the fleet would fall apart even faster. Supreme Commander watched his fleet die. Ships were exploding all around him. His tactical display was a mess of red markers indicating destroyed vessels. The humans were not just fighting. They were executing a perfect ambush with weapons and tactics the Still had no defense against. All ships fall back, ordered. Retreat to the jump point. But falling back was not simple when enemies surrounded you and asteroids blocked your movement. Ships tried to break free, but human forces pursued them like wolves hunting prey. Every vessel that broke formation became an easy target. Colonel Hart watched from her command platform as the battle unfolded below. Her weapons platforms had done their job, breaking the formation in the initial attack. Now the human fleet was finishing what she had started. Platform 17 is out of ammunition, one of her officers reported. Platform 34 took a hit and is offline. Platform 8 is requesting resupply. Track the reports, keeping her platforms firing as long as possible. Every minute they kept shooting was another minute the human fleet had to destroy ships. The battle raged for 6 hours. It was the longest single engagement of the war and the most brutal. Both sides took terrible losses, but the casualties were catastrophic. Over 1,400 ships were destroyed. Hundreds more were crippled and drifting. The asteroid belt was filled with debris and bodies. Supreme Commander died when his flagship was destroyed by a coordinated strike from 3 human destroyers. His last transmission was an order to retreat. Less than 300 ships escaped the New Columbia system. The rest were gone. Foster stood on his bridge looking at the casualty reports. 70 human ships destroyed, hundreds more damaged, over 6,000 casualties. The numbers hurt. Every loss was a person who would not go home, but the mission was accomplished. The fleet was broken. "Sir, we are receiving surrender requests," Lieutenant Brandon reported. 54 damaged vessels are asking to be taken prisoner. Had to think about that. They had not asked for mercy when they raided human colonies. They had killed children, taken slaves, shown no compassion, but he was human, and humans had rules even in war. "Accept their surrender," said. "Send boarding teams to secure the ships. Treat the prisoners according to military law. We are not savages." Fleet Commander Daniel Warren addressed the human fleet from his command center. "All ships, begin recovery operations. Search and rescue teams look for survivors. Medical ships prepare to receive casualties. This battle is won, but the war is not over until the formally surrender." He opened a channel to the entire galaxy. The broadcast went to every species, every government, every news service. "This is Fleet Commander Daniel Warren of Earth. Today, human forces engaged and defeated the main battle fleet at New Columbia. The Empire is broken. Their military power is destroyed. The war is over." He paused. "To the people, your leaders started this war. Your military committed acts of genocide against human colonies, but we do not hold you responsible for your leaders' crimes. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Continue fighting and we will show strength. Choose wisely." On Prime, the government was in chaos. Supreme Commander was dead. The fleet was destroyed. Rival factions were already fighting for control. Some wanted to continue the war. Others wanted peace at any cost. The civilian government finally took control. They contacted Earth directly, bypassing the Galactic Council entirely. The message was simple. The Empire surrendered unconditionally. All hostilities would cease immediately. All human prisoners would be returned. The Empire would accept any terms humanity demanded. President Victoria received the surrender in the White House Situation Room. She was surrounded by her cabinet and military advisors. Everyone was exhausted. The war had lasted only 2 months, but it felt like years. "What are our terms?" she asked the room. Ambassador Mitchell spoke first. "Full reparations for the destroyed colonies, return of all prisoners and slaves, war crimes trials for military officers who ordered attacks on civilians, demilitarization of the fleet to defensive levels only." "And territory?" asked the Secretary of State. Daniel Warren pulled up a map. They claimed all the space surrounding human colonies. They said it was their territory and we were trespassing. I propose we claim that same space. Make it a human protectorate. Any species living there comes under our protection. Victoria considered it. "That is a lot of space. We do not have the ships to patrol it all." "We will build them," Daniel said. "This war taught us we need a real military, a fleet that can protect our interests and our allies. The galaxy respects strength. We need to be strong enough that no one tries this again." In the Galactic Council chambers, Council leader watched recordings of the Battle of New Columbia. Member species were arguing, pointing fingers, trying to understand how this happened. The mighty empire had been destroyed in 2 months by a species that joined the galaxy only 3 years ago. Ambassador Mitchell appeared before the council. She did not ask for permission to speak. She just started talking. "The empire has surrendered," announced. "All hostilities have ceased. Humanity is prepared to accept peace on the following terms." She listed the demands: reparations, prisoner returns, war crimes trials, territorial recognition. Every demand was reasonable by galactic standards, but the demands came with an implied threat. "These are the terms. Accept them or we continue fighting." "The Council must ratify these terms," said, trying to assert some authority. Looked at him coldly. "No, they will accept these terms because they have no choice. Humanity is informing the Council as a courtesy. We do not need your approval. We do not need your permission. We fought this war alone because you refused to help. Now we will make the peace alone because you have proven untrustworthy." She continued, "Humanity is withdrawing from council jurisdiction. We will maintain diplomatic relations, but we will not recognize council authority over human affairs. Any future disputes will be handled through direct negotiation, not council arbitration." The chamber erupted in protests. Species shouted, demanded order, but just stood there waiting for them to quiet down. When they finally did, she spoke again. "They attacked us because they thought we were weak. The council did nothing because they thought we did not matter. Both were wrong. This war should never have happened. But since it did, humanity will make sure nothing like it happens again. We will build a military that no one dares challenge. We will protect our people and our allies with or without council approval." She turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. 27 species have requested mutual defense treaties with Earth. 43 have proposed trade agreements. We will consider all requests. Any species that wants partnership based on respect and equality is welcome to contact us directly. Good day, Council Leader." The transmission ended. Mitchell walked out of the council chambers for the last time as a junior ambassador begging for help. The next time she came, it would be as the representative of a major galactic power. Director Brooks reviewed intelligence reports showing the impact of the war. The galactic economy was changing. Trade routes were being renegotiated. Species were choosing sides. Some stayed with the council. Others were moving toward Earth. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was breaking apart. "What do you think comes next?" his deputy asked. "Studied the data. Peace for a while. No one wants to fight us now. But eventually someone will get brave or stupid. The galaxy is not ready for what humanity represents. We broke all their rules and won anyway. That scares them. Fear leads to mistakes. So we prepare for the next war." "No," said. "We prepare to make sure there is no next war. We build alliances. We create trade networks. We demonstrate that humanity is more valuable as a partner than as an enemy. Strength brought us peace. Wisdom will keep it." On Earth, people celebrated. The war was over. Their people were coming home. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity. But in the government buildings and military bases, leaders were already planning for the future. The war had changed everything. Humanity could never go back to being weak or dependent on others for protection. The galaxy had pushed them too far. Now the galaxy would have to live with the consequences. 6 months after the Battle of New Columbia, the Galactic Council held its most important session in 500 years. The Grand Chamber was full, with representatives from every member species. But the seating arrangement had changed. Humanity no longer sat in the small section reserved for junior members. They now occupied prime positions in the center of the chamber. Ambassador Mitchell stood at the central podium. Fleet Commander Daniel Warren stood to her right in full military uniform. Director Brooks stood to her left. The message was clear. Humanity came with military power and intelligence to back up their diplomatic words. Council leader opened the session with obvious discomfort. The council recognizes Ambassador Mitchell of Earth. Stepped forward. She carried no notes. She had practiced this speech for weeks. Council members, humanity has submitted a proposal to restructure how this council operates. I will be brief and direct about what we demand. The word demand made several species shift in their seats. 6 months ago, humans asked politely and were ignored. Now they demanded and expected to be heard. First, equal voting rights for all member species regardless of military power or economic size. Every species gets 1 vote. No more special privileges for founding members. Started to interrupt but kept talking. Second, mandatory arbitration for all disputes. When one species attacks another, the council acts immediately. No more political calculations about who is more important. Justice applies equally or it does not exist. She pulled up a holographic display showing the 17 human colonies that had been attacked. They raided our settlements for 8 months. We brought evidence to this council 17 times. Each time you did nothing. That failure cost thousands of lives and led to a war that destroyed the empire. That must never happen again. Third, humanity demands permanent veto power over any council decision affecting human interests. We will not allow this council to make choices about our security or our people without our approval. The chamber erupted. Smaller species cheered. They had spent centuries being ignored while powerful species made all decisions. Larger species protested. They were losing their privileged positions. Slammed his 4 hands on his desk. These demands are impossible. The council has operated under the same structure for 500 years. You cannot rewrite everything because you won one war. Turn to face him directly. We can and we will. The old structure failed. It protected the strong and abandoned the weak. It allowed genocide to continue while politicians debated. That system is dead. You can accept these changes or you can watch this council become irrelevant. She gestured to Daniel. 27 species have signed mutual defense treaties with Earth. 43 have trade agreements with us. More applications arrive every day. Those species are choosing Earth over the Council because we actually protect our allies. We actually enforce our agreements. We actually care about justice instead of politics. Daniel stepped forward. The Galactic Council can reform itself or it can die. Those are the only options. Humanity does not need this council, but the galaxy needs an organization that represents everyone fairly. Choose wisely. On Earth, President Victoria addressed a global audience. The war was 6 months past, but its effects were still unfolding. Human casualties had been high. 7,000 military personnel lost, 23 colonies damaged. Economic disruption that was only now beginning to stabilize. But humanity had also gained more than it lost. Respect from the galaxy, territory that was now recognized as human space, allies who looked to Earth for leadership, a military that no one dared challenge. 6 months ago, humanity stood at a crossroads, Victoria said. We could accept the role the galaxy assigned us, be victims and beg for scraps of justice, or we could fight for our place among the stars. We chose to fight. She paused. That choice cost us. I see the casualty lists every day. I meet with families who lost loved ones. I visit hospitals where wounded soldiers recover. The price of respect was paid in blood. But I also see what we built. Human colonies are expanding again. Trade is flowing. Species that once laughed at us now seek our friendship. We proved that humans belong in this galaxy, that our values and our strength can change the universe for the better. She announced the formation of the Terran Alliance, a new organization separate from the Galactic Council. Any species could join based on principles of mutual respect and genuine equality. Membership was voluntary. Protection was guaranteed. The alliance would maintain its own military forces independent of council oversight. We welcome anyone who shares our vision, Victoria said. A galaxy where all species are treated fairly, where strength serves justice instead of replacing it, where smaller civilizations do not live in fear of larger ones. This is the future we are building. 32 species had already applied to join the alliance. More applications were being processed. The galaxy was dividing into 2 groups, those who stayed with the traditional council structure and those who joined Earth's new system. Captain Foster oversaw construction at the new shipyards orbiting Earth and Mars. The war had revealed both strengths and weaknesses in human ship design. Now engineers were building next-generation vessels that fixed the problems and enhanced the successes. "How many ships are under construction?" asked Captain. She had been promoted to admiral and now commanded the entire home fleet. 50 dreadnoughts, 200 destroyers, 500 smaller craft, replied. We will have them all operational within 2 years, plus the orbital defense platforms and the new stealth ships. Studied the blueprints. This is 3 times larger than our war fleet. We are preparing so we never have to use them, said. The goal is to be so strong that no one even thinks about attacking us. Peace through strength. He pulled up tactical displays showing human patrol routes. We are responsible for protecting Alliance members now. That means we need ships in dozens of systems. We need rapid response forces. We need intelligence networks. We are building an empire even if we do not call it that. Colonel Hart trained new Marine battalions at facilities on Earth and throughout the colonies. Applications to join the military had increased by 400% after the war. Young people saw the recordings of Marines fighting on Prime and wanted to be part of that legacy. Remember your training, told a class of new recruits. You are not fighting for glory. You are not fighting for conquest. You are fighting to protect people who cannot protect themselves. That is the difference between soldiers and warriors. Warriors fight for honor. Soldiers fight for others. She showed them footage from the colony raids, children running from soldiers, families torn apart, homes burning. This is why we train so hard. This is why we prepare for the worst. Because somewhere in the galaxy, someone is planning to do this again. We exist to make sure they fail. Director Brooks expanded Earth's intelligence network across known space. The Strategic Intelligence Service now operated in every major system, gathering information on potential threats and opportunities. Humans would never again enter a conflict without knowing everything about their enemy. "What are they doing?" asked his deputy director. Pulled up reports from former territory. 3 factions are fighting for control of what is left of the empire. None of them have the strength to threaten anyone else. The military is scattered. The economy is collapsed. They will not be a problem for at least a generation. And the council? Divided, half the members support our reforms. The other half resist any change, is losing control. Several major species are considering joining the alliance instead of fighting us. Studied the data. The galaxy is reorganizing around us. Some species see opportunity, others see threat. We need to manage both carefully. One mistake and we could face a coalition of everyone who fears human power. In former territory, human peacekeeping forces maintained order. Admiral Daniel Warren had command of the operation. Human ships patrolled trade routes, protecting civilian vessels from pirates. Human Marines stopped warlords from raiding vulnerable colonies. Human aid ships delivered food, medicine, and construction supplies to damaged worlds. The population watched with mixed feelings. These were the same humans who had destroyed their military and killed their leaders. But these humans were also helping rebuild their civilization, treating wounded civilians and establishing law and order. A delegation of civilians met with Admiral Warren at a forward base. They asked the same question everyone asked. Why was humanity helping the species that tried to destroy them? Daniel's answer was simple and honest. We fought your military because they attacked our people. We destroyed your empire because your leaders chose war over peace. But the civilians did not make those choices. You are not our enemy. Your old government was. He continued, humanity believes in something your leaders forgot. That strength should protect the weak, not exploit them. That victory should lead to peace, not more oppression. We defeated you in war. Now we will help you build something better from the ruins. The delegates were silent. They had expected conquest or revenge. Instead, they found humans who wanted to help. It was confusing and strange and completely different from how the galaxy usually worked. This approach shocked other species. Military analysts across the galaxy watched human forces operate in space with disbelief. Humans defeated an enemy and then helped them recover. They won territory and then offered it back under better terms. They demonstrated mercy without weakness. Some species saw it as foolishness. Others saw it as dangerous. A few saw it as an opportunity to learn a different way of doing things. Ambassador Mitchell received a private message from council leader. He wanted to meet in person, away from the council chambers. Agreed. They met in a secured room with no other witnesses. Looked older than he had 6 months ago. His carapace had lost its shine. His movements were slower. "You have won," he said without any introduction. "The council is dying. Species are leaving to join your alliance. Those who remain argue constantly. I have lost control." Sat across from him. "You lost control the day you refused to help us. You lost credibility when you allowed the strong to prey on the weak. The council died long before we declared war. We just made it obvious." "What do you want?" asked. "Truly, do you want to rule the galaxy? Do you want revenge for being dismissed?" Considered the question carefully. "We want what we always wanted, to be treated with respect, to have our people protected, to build relationships based on mutual benefit instead of fear. We did not come to the stars seeking power. We came seeking community." "But you have power now," said, "more than any species has had in centuries. What will you do with it?" "We will use it to build something better than what existed before," replied. "The old system protected the powerful and ignored everyone else. Our system will protect everyone equally. That is not idealism. That is necessity. If the weak are not protected, they eventually become strong enough to burn down the whole structure. We almost did." Was silent for a long moment. "The council will accept your reforms. I will push them through. But it will take time. Years, maybe decades. The old species will resist." "Then we continue building the alliance," said. "Eventually the council becomes irrelevant or it reforms itself. Either way, the galaxy changes. You can be part of that change or you can watch from the sidelines." She stood to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. Humanity does not forget its enemies, but we also do not forget those who help us. If you truly support these reforms, we will support you. We would rather have a reformed council than two competing organizations dividing the galaxy." On Earth, 1 year after the war ended, a memorial was completed at Arlington. 7,000 names were engraved in black stone. Each name represented a person who died fighting for humanity's right to exist as equals in the galaxy. President Victoria attended the dedication ceremony. Families of the fallen stood in quiet rows. Military honor guards held position. The day was clear and cold. Victoria spoke to the assembled crowd. "These people did not die for conquest or glory. They died protecting others. They died defending the principle that all species deserve justice and safety. They died so that humanity could stand with dignity among the stars." She paused, her voice thick with emotion. "We won the war, but they paid the price. Every name on this wall represents someone who will never see the galaxy we built with their sacrifice. We owe them more than memory. We owe them action. We must make sure their sacrifice meant something. So we will keep building, we will keep protecting, we will keep fighting for a galaxy where strength serves justice. That is how we honor them, not with words but with deeds." In the Terran Alliance headquarters, representatives from 53 species worked together on trade agreements, defense protocols, and cultural exchanges. Humans sat beside aliens from dozens of worlds, arguing and debating and compromising. It was messy and difficult and imperfect. It was also the beginning of something new. A system where small species had the same voice as large ones, where disputes were resolved through arbitration instead of violence, where alliances were based on shared values instead of fear. The Galactic Council slowly reformed itself, pushed through changes that gave smaller species more representation. Dispute resolution became mandatory instead of optional. The council was not dead, but it was transformed into something closer to what humanity demanded. Fleet Commander Daniel Warren stood in the command center watching displays that showed human ships across dozens of systems. The fleet was larger now, better equipped, better trained, but the real strength was not in the ships. It was in the network of allies who trusted Earth to keep its promises. "Do you think we can keep this peace?" asked Captain Foster. Daniel considered the question. "For a while. No one wants to fight us now, but eventually someone will get brave or desperate. The galaxy is not comfortable with what we represent. We broke all their rules and proved those rules were wrong. That makes us dangerous to the old order. So we prepare for the next war." "No," Daniel said. "We prepare to make sure there is no next war. We build so many alliances that attacking us means attacking everyone. We create so much trade that everyone benefits from peace. We demonstrate that our way works better than the old way. Strength got us respect. Wisdom will keep it." Director Brooks reviewed his latest intelligence reports. The galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality. Some species thrived in the changed environment. Others struggled to adapt. But the pattern was clear. The old system was dying. The new system was being built around human principles. "How long before someone challenges us?" his deputy asked. Studied the data carefully. 3 years, maybe 5. Some species will decide they cannot live in a human-dominated galaxy. They will form a coalition and test our resolve. When that happens, we need to be ready. "Ready to fight." "Ready to win without fighting," corrected. "The goal is not to defeat enemies. The goal is to make sure they never become enemies in the first place. But if they force war on us again, we will respond the same way we did with the overwhelming force. No mercy, complete victory." Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal. Colonies expanded. Trade grew. Young people enlisted in the military, inspired by the generation that won the war. The economy boomed as alien species sought human goods and technology. But in government offices and military bases, leaders never forgot the lessons of the war. Peace was not guaranteed. It had to be maintained through constant vigilance and overwhelming strength. The galaxy respected force. Humanity would always have enough force to command respect. President Victoria stood in the White House, looking at star maps that showed human influence spreading across the galaxy. What started as a desperate fight for survival had become something larger. Humanity was not just surviving. They were leading. They were changing the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. "Do you think we did the right thing?" asked her Secretary of State. Victoria considered the question. "We did the only thing. The galaxy forced us to choose between being victims or being victors. We chose to survive. Everything else followed from that choice." "But the cost was high." "Yes," Victoria agreed. 7,000 dead, thousands more wounded, colonies damaged, years of rebuilding ahead. But the alternative was worse. If we had accepted the role they assigned us, how many more would have died? How many colonies would have been destroyed? We fought so others would not have to. She pointed to the star map. Every species in the alliance is there because they trust us to protect them. Every trade agreement exists because partners believe we honor our contracts. Every ally stands with us because we proved we stand with them. That is the galaxy we built from the ashes of war. In the end, the war changed everything. The empire was broken, its territory divided among multiple smaller states. The Galactic Council reformed itself or became irrelevant. The balance of power shifted permanently toward species who valued justice over tradition. And humanity stood at the center of it all, not because they sought power, but because they refused to accept weakness. Not because they wanted to dominate, but because they demanded to be treated as equals. The galaxy pushed them too far. The galaxy attacked their colonies and murdered their children. The galaxy laughed when they asked for help and dismissed their pleas for justice. So humanity declared war. And in declaring war, they declared their independence from a system that had failed them. They proved that might does not always make right, but right without might is just words. They demonstrated that a species from a harsh, raised in constant conflict, could bring that strength to the stars and use it to build rather than destroy. The future was uncertain. Threats remained. Enemies watched from the shadows, but humanity had proven they could adapt to anything. They had proven they could fight when necessary and build when possible. They had proven that sometimes the only way to achieve peace is to show the galaxy what happens when you push humans too hard. The old order was dead. The new order was still being written, and everyone in the galaxy knew that humanity would play a central role in determining what came next. Because when humans declared war, the galaxy realized too late that it had gone too far to survive unchanged. Now everyone lived in a universe where humans were not victims or supplicants, but equals who would defend their values with every weapon at their disposal. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never push humanity to the edge, because when humans reach that point, they do not break. They fight back. And when humans fight, they do not lose.